School this morning at Mount Harmony Free Will Baptist Church. Again, I want to thank you for watching. I appreciate your time and the effort that you put into watching these videos. Again, we want to encourage you to continue, keep on keeping on. If you're a child of the King, you win. We don't know when, at what time, but we do win. And we just want to make sure that each and every one of you know that. Just keep on hanging on. This morning we're going to be in Daniel chapter 6. We'll continue our study of the book of Daniel. Another very familiar story, another children's church story this morning. We're going to talk about Daniel and the lion's den. We've covered several lessons out of this book that we've all have been very familiar with. If we grew up in church, even if you just had a loose affiliation with church growing up, you've heard these stories. And we've talked about each time we've had one of these lessons that we do not need to let the fact that these stories are familiar make us think that they're not important. Because there's things that we can learn in Hitogi in 2020 from what happened to Daniel nearly 3,000 years ago. So, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to look when the enemy roars. And obviously we're going to be talking about Daniel and the lion's den. And our first section is chapter 6, verses 1 through 9. The lost may be jealous of the success our excellent character and work ethic brings us. So we're going to look at Daniel chapter 6, verses 1 through 9. And it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom. And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto him, or unto them, and the king should have no damage. Now remember, last week we saw the writing on the wall. And the kingdom and civilization and dynasty of the Babylonians fell to the Medes and Persians. This is where we're at today. Now, when the Persians or Medes and Persians took over Babylon, and this was been a huge province for them to govern, they didn't start from scratch. They took the bureaucracy, the government that they already had, and they kept most of those leaders, and then they would institute their own controls over that. But they wanted to have a framework already in place. So, when they did that, they found those people that had been ruling before, and of course Daniel was one of them. Remember, very recently he'd been promised a third of the kingdom. Well, at this time, Daniel has set up, whoever this Darius is, the governor of Babylon, or whoever he might have been, he sets up these 3 presidents to be over the smaller bureaucrats that were ruling the province. And of course, Daniel was made one of those 3. Verse 3, Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, and became an excellent spirit, or because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. So you've got 3, and then we break down the 120. And the 120 answered to the 3, but then Daniel was given precedent over those 3. So he was the leader of those other 2 then, the 3. And what that would have meant was the information crept up, and when it got to those 3 presidents, then they came to Daniel, and then he would have reported to Darius. Now, it says that responsibility was given to Daniel because he had an excellent spirit. All right. Remember, Daniel, by this time, is truly an older man. He'd been in captivity or in exile in a foreign land since probably he was a teenager. So basically his entire life, he'd been in some form of civilization or culture that wasn't his. But he had adapted. God had rewarded his efforts. God had rewarded his work. God had rewarded his faithfulness. So here's Daniel. Verse 4. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. So you've got these people and they're jealous, and they get together and say, we've got to find a way to smear Daniel. Okay? You think politics is ugly now, these people wanted him dead. Okay? The fact that we have divisions now, don't let that frighten you. It's that we've had divisions going back from the founding of this country, and since there's been 2 people together on the planet, we've had divisions. Okay? If you think that what you see on TV now is a new phenomenon, go back and read a history book. Not the ones they're rewriting, but the real writings of the Founding Fathers. Those cats hated each other. Now they divided up in sides pretty quick. So let's continue on. So they sought to find a reason to condemn Daniel or find fault with him. Verse 5. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. So they get together and said, listen, here's the problem. Daniel's a good guy. He does what he's supposed to do. He acts the way he's supposed to act. He's the real thing. Okay? He don't say one thing and then go do another. He don't have hidden agendas. What you see is what you get. He's loyal to the crown. We can't find anything. And then they said, you know what? There is one thing. And we go all the way back when Daniel was a young man, just first brought into exile from his homeland in Judah. And remember, he said that he told the head of the eunuchs over all the children of the exiles, said, I can't eat this because it's against my religion, it's against my dietary laws. We go all the way back then to now. Daniel hasn't changed. And God hasn't changed. And Daniel has been rewarded because of his faithfulness. And they said, but you know what? These people that are out to get Daniel, if we find anything, we'll find it there. So verse 6. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said unto him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, the princes, the counselors, the captains, have all consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, let's think what they just said. Remember what's going on in the world, okay? A lot of you grew up hating history because you didn't understand what was going on. You don't understand the backstory. You can't get away from the fact that one civilization has just fallen and another one is rising. And these are the rulers that were already in Babylon. Now we've had a power change. And now the Babylonians are not the supreme dynasty, civilization. The Persians are. And these people are still in control. They're the same people that were in control with the Babylonians. And they're still in control. And they said, you know what? Now's the time we need to do something to get rid of that Daniel. We got a whole new set of rules here. Now's the time to do it. And then they go to the man that's over the providence. And they says, you know what? This is a way to prove you're in control. Okay? These people they were praising and singing the praises of Belshazzar just a couple weeks ago. But now you're in control. And here's what you need to do to cement your authority in this providence. And we've talked to everybody all over the providence. And this is how you show that you're the king now. You're the leader, not Belshazzar. And if they tell him, they said, now what you need to do is you need to pass a decree that nobody can ask anything of any god or any ruler except for you for 30 days to show that you are the source of power. Okay? You see where we're at? Now, that's the thing. And now, when you pass something like that, you got to give it teeth. Okay? You can't just pass a decree like that and say, well, if they don't do it, we'll give them an educational talk about it and tell them not to do it next time. So they say, here's the teeth of it. If they ask something of any god or anyone other than you for these 30 days, they get thrown in the den of lions. Okay, which is a death sentence. Verse 8. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Notice what we're saying here. They said, we want you to pass this decree. You're the king. You're our king. I know we were working for Belshazzar last week, but we're working for you now. Okay? And we want everybody to know that we're working for you and you're the man. And we want you to write this and we want you to put it in writing. Don't just say it. You got to write it down. And then notice this. They remind him of his laws. They don't say, now in Babylon, this is the way we did it. Notice what they say. They said, sign it in writing that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians. Okay, these people are pretty smart. And they say, we just want to do it the way you need it done. Okay, we're doing this for you. Okay, Darius, we're only looking out for your best interest because we're loyal subjects to the new authority. Okay, and then they remind him that whatever you write and decree, it can't be changed. That's important. It cannot be changed, even by you. They don't mention that part yet, but they're going to get to it. Now, we go on to verse 9. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. Now, all of his advisors come through and tell him this. Sounds like a pretty good plan. Okay? He has no idea why they're doing it. He just says, hey, these people, they're trying to show their allegiance to me. This sounds pretty good. This will bring this providence together. They've been under, they're Babylonians. They've been under this culture their entire lives. And this is an effort to bring us all together. Their own people are saying we need to do this. I'm going to do this to appease them. And that's where we're at. Now, notice that Daniel was targeted. Do you remember why Daniel was targeted? Because he did right. Here's some things we need to get out of this other than just a man got thrown in a lion's den. Doing right doesn't mean that you will always escape criticism. Doing the right thing, we already know, can be difficult. It can be hard. It can be uncomfortable. It can be unpopular. But we also need to know that doing the right thing can have negative consequences. Daniel's doing the right thing, but because he's doing the right thing, people are out to get him. And the wheels are in motion now. Let's look at Daniel chapter 6, verses 10 through 18. Our faithfulness to God may cost us dearly. 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went to his house, and his window being open in his chamber towards Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. So what did Daniel do when he found out about the decree? He went home and talked to the Lord about it. And notice he said he opened the windows and faced Jerusalem. That would have been facing back west to him, right? So he did it. Why did he open the windows? If he kept the windows shut, nobody would have known it, would they? But he'd been doing it the entire time he'd been here. Remember, his 3 friends, at the sound of all the instruments, they were supposed to kneel and they didn't. They just stood there. He kept doing what he'd always been doing. He went home and he kneeled and he prayed 3 times. Verse 11. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou... Now notice what this is the people saying. They came to the king. Darius doesn't know about any of this. Okay? He knows the decree's been signed. He signed it. But notice they come to him and they come to the king and says, hast thou not signed a decree? None of us like to be asked a question like that. Did you do that? Didn't you do that? Didn't you say? And that's how they lead off. Darius right there knows he's in trouble. They says, hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? Well, of course, he knows the answer. He just has signed it. And then he follows up and they say, the king answered and said, the thing is true according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Now, he said, yep, that's what we did. We did it yesterday. Okay. 13. Then answerest they and said before the king, that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. There's something very striking in this to me. Brother Ben talked Sunday night about having a 2x4 in your eye while your friend has a splinter in his, but you can't see your 2x4, but you can only see his splinter. Look here. These are Babylonian officers, Babylonian officials that have maintained their jobs because the Persians just wanted to keep calm in their new providence. And notice what they said, that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah. Do you see what they called him? They said, he's a bondsman. He ain't nothing but somebody we brought here. He don't belong here. He ain't one of us. These people are captured themselves. They're of the captivity of Babylon. But they can't see that. They only see him. And then they say, he doesn't regard your decree, and you signed it, and he still did it 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself. And he set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Now, we remember when we had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they didn't nail down. You remember how mad and upset Nebuchadnezzar was? And it made him mad. He said he was wroth, and he was fired up mad, and he brought them in front of him. And he said, listen, maybe, and he's mad, maybe you didn't hear the music. But we're going to play it again. And when we do, you're going to kneel down, right? He was angry. And then when they didn't, he couldn't stand it. And he had them thrown in the furnace. Notice what Darius does here. One of 2 things. This man has known Daniel for a short time, but he has come to appreciate and respect Daniel this much. Or this man is so broken by the fact that these men have deceived him, and they've mocked him, and they've entrapped him. They used his own writings. They've used his own pride against him. Maybe it's a combination of the 2. I don't know. I'm not there and I'm not in his mind. But this man agonizes over it. He said he was sore displeased with himself, and he set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. This man got to work. And he said, I've done something I didn't mean to do. I am going to have my best and most trusted advisor killed because of a silly thing I signed trying to help to make these people happy. And it comes to find out, and he's already thinking, these people are not for me, they're against me. Okay? That seed's already planted in his mind. Now, he's working. So the few advisors he has that he can trust, he said, guys, get to work. There's got to be a loophole in this law so we can get out of this. There's a good man going to die if we don't get him out of this. Verse 15, then these men assembled to the king and said unto the king, King, O king, the law of the Medes and Persians is that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed. The king is probably visibly upset, and then they said, King, now, it's not our laws. The Babylonian laws don't matter anymore. But your laws say that you can't change a decree after you give it. Right? Or that little saying that I love so much, just saying. Okay? So, that's where we're at. Verse 16, then the king commanded that they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. We talked about Nebuchadnezzar looking and saying, I see the Son of Man walking in the fiery furnace. This man's not Nebuchadnezzar. And his actions and dealings with Daniel are not like Nebuchadnezzar's actions and dealings with the 3 Hebrew children, when basically they did the same thing. This is a whole different paradigm. And we see that this man is not mad at Daniel. He's mad at himself. He's not mad at Daniel. And he says, Thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. I don't know, and nor do you, what this man knew about Daniel's God. Maybe Daniel had witnessed to him. I don't know. Maybe it's just a man that worships a lot of gods, that sees this as his primary God, and he believes his primary God will save him. I don't know. But that's a big statement. He says, I believe your God will save you. And in verse 17, a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Now that's something that's kind of always bothered me, because you've got the king, and he sealed it. All right? He sealed it, so if the seal's broke, somebody's know they've tampered with it. But notice all these lords use their signet on it too. I've never fully understood why it mattered if theirs was on it. Maybe it's because they were the prosecutors. He's the final authority, but they're the ones that put him there. I don't know. We slide on and let's look at verse 18. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. Now this is a man that's upset about this. Here's the king. How many other people he'd had killed? There didn't just happen to be a den of lions there for no reason. This wasn't a zoo. Okay? So why was there a den of lions there to begin with? Because from time to time, apparently people were thrown in there. So had Darius ever had someone executed before? I'm willing to say yes. How many? I don't know. But they had a place designated for it. Okay? So that being the case, the fact that someone's going to lose their life probably is not the problem. The fact is, he's mad at himself because he was fooled into signing something he did not intend, but he's also losing Daniel. Which one bothers him most? Maybe they're equal. We don't know. But this man couldn't sleep. He's the potentate of this area, and he didn't sleep worried about a man in the lion's den. Okay? Let's continue on. We can trust God in all circumstances, and we're going to read 19 through 28. And the king rose very early in the morning. He went in haste into the den of lions. This is a powerful man that's very concerned about one of the captivity of Jerusalem. All right? He goes there. Remember, as Daniel's being put in, this king says, I believe that your God that you pray to can keep you. Now, I told you, I don't know how much this man believes in Jehovah God. But the fact he got up early to go check means that there was some faith that he thought Daniel would survive this. If he thought Daniel was dead the moment he stepped foot in there, the lowered him in, or however they did it, the moment that he entered there, he thought he was dead. He couldn't have sat up and worried about that too much. And he sure wouldn't have got up early to go check. He's making an effort to go look now. And it says that he went and checked. 20. And then he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice. What that means is we don't use that term. But he cried out sorrowfully. He was sad, and he cried out, hoping Daniel would answer. And to Daniel the king, unto Daniel, and the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest, continually able to deliver thee from the lions? Now what we do want to see here is the faith of Daniel compared to the faith of the king. Daniel knew that his God was able. Just like the 3 Hebrew children, he knew God was able, but he didn't know if they would deliver them. Daniel knew God was able, but he didn't know if it was God's will that he would deliver him. The king here didn't know if he could. There's a big difference between the two. 21. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lion's mouth. And they have not hurt me, for as much as there or before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Daniel just points out, King, I've not done anything to harm you. And you know what? And I think that king, we're going to keep reading, and I think that king's shaking his head. Daniel, you have not. You have not done anything to hurt me. Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. What saved Daniel? His faith. His faith in a mighty, powerful Creator, the God of everything, saved Daniel. He was saved because of his faith. Now, this king makes a statement, or we get a statement here, because he believed in his God. You know what? The only thing that's going to save any of us is our faith. The only thing that can save any of us is our faith. We have to have faith in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And if we have that, we accept Him as our Savior, then our faith will save us. The Bible tells us that over and over and over. The only thing that can save mankind is our faith. And it's our individual faith. The faith of that king that Daniel's God would save him didn't help Daniel one bit. The only thing that saved Daniel was his faith in a mighty God. The only thing that's going to save any of us and get us to heaven is our faith in a mighty God. We continue on. Then the king commanded that they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of the lions, them, their children, their wives, and the lions had the master of them, and brake all their bones in pieces, or ever they came out of the bottom of the den. Now, remember I told you that the moment they come to that king and said, do you remember when you said, and they started using his words and his decree against him? If you're that king, let's just think about it. Let's get a mental picture for a minute. Think of the facial expressions and the thought processes going through that king when they start telling him that. Oh my goodness, none of us like to be done that way. And here's the ruler of that providence, and they're reminding him of what he did, and they're reminding him of the pickle they put him in, and they're reminding him that the box they painted him into. He's mad already. Okay? He's mad already. He might have already had a list of names on it before they pulled Daniel out of that lion's den. But now they're all going in it. And I think, and I can't prove it, and you can't either, I think everybody that put that signet down and they marked that they had a part of that, I think it was a pretty easy way to round them up then. Oh, king, I didn't do it. Yep, yeah, you did right there. You signed it right there. Yeah, you did. Okay. And it said they cast their whole families in there. You know what? Our actions have consequences. Our actions have consequences not just for us, but for people around us. No, they don't. I promise they do. I promise they do. And if you think about it, you know I'm right. Our actions have consequences. 25. Then the king Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree that in every division of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, steadfast forever, and his kingdom which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, and he hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Now, again, polytheistic people, but they're being exposed to a God. Not a God, they're being exposed to the God through the faith of this man. How many of them turned and worshiped Daniel's God? I don't know. Okay. But we do know this, there's Christians in this part of the world. There's people there now, they're persecuted, but there's Christians in Iran. There's Christians in the Middle East. God is able. God is able. He's always able. God's able right now. Whatever we're in, God is able. Guys, we don't know what tomorrow holds, but we know that we serve a mighty God, a powerful God, a God that is able. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch these videos. I appreciate the effort. You get up just a few minutes one morning or one night to sit down and watch these. Guys, keep in mind, we win. We're on the team of the Almighty God, the giver and sustainer of life. And if we're a child of His, we win. Thank you and have a good night.